Are you in trouble with your teacher because you didn't reference properly, even though no one taught you how to reference properly? Are you working on your research project outcome and it's one of the three main criteria is to know how to reference correctly and substantiate your evidence? Well, this is the video for you because this video is all about referencing and the very important art form that it is. Why do we reference? We reference partially because plagiarism is bad. You've probably heard this idea before. Referencing means we can use other people's ideas without unfairly claiming them as our own ideas. Because that's when we get into trouble, when we're like, I came up with all this by myself because we didn't reference. And then our teacher is like, well, I'm pretty sure you didn't come up with that by yourself. You need a reference, don't copy and paste, all that kind of stuff. So if you want to know about copying and pasting, watch a different video of mine. But for now, we don't want to get into trouble by stealing other people's ideas by not referencing. That's plagiarism. It will get us kicked out of uni and it will get us marked down at school. But we also want to reference because research is good. It's actually really good to be able to say, well, I didn't do this information all by myself. I got it from that person over there. And that person over there is like, great, I also got this bit of my information from that person over there. Because we all are working collectively to work as a human race to know more about stuff. Often referencing is more geared towards university level. And so at school, we're not exactly taught perfectly how to do it. It's not the end of the world if it's not done super well. But at university, that's when people are starting to do their own research, refer to other people's research. And that's where it's really, really important to make sure that if I'm studying at uni and I'm wanting to look up a particular indoor plant and someone else has already done a bunch of research on that indoor plant, I can go to them and say, cool, where did you get that information? And they can say, well, here and here and here. And I can do that by looking at the references that they use in their literature. So that's why we reference. You may have heard of a whole bunch of different referencing styles. Now, none of these are wrong. Some of them are quite specific, or all of them are quite specific, and some of them are more specific to different fields of study. So for example, when I was majoring in English, I used the Modern Language Association. So that's very English literature-based referencing system. When I was majoring in psychology, I used the APA, American Psychological Association. Harvard is another really common one. If you are watching this because you're part of my research project class, use APA or Harvard. Harvard's a good one, that's pretty common. But also know that I'm going to talk about footnoting in a second. The Society of Biblical Literature, for example, they specify in footnotes. So I'll explain what that means in a second if you're not sure, but just know that these are all used for different fields of study. Most of the time in high school, it actually doesn't matter too much which one you do. They all use the same information, but they do format it differently. Okay, so essentially the same information. Some of them might use page numbers and others might use different things, but essentially it's the same info, just formatted differently. So, yes. Now, we've got bibliography, reference list, in-text referencing, footnote referencing. Yes, there are many different words here and they can be confusing. So, if we go with bibliography first. A bibliography is all of the sources that you looked at to help you write your essay, including background research. So if you're doing a research thing on spider plants, like this little guy here, and you go to Wikipedia and look up spider plants as a bit of a background research information, you will need to put that in your bibliography, even if you didn't actually use any of that information or cite it, like reference it, within your paper. Okay, so that's just anywhere that you looked, any videos you watched, any people you talked to while you did a bit of research, even if you used it or even if you didn't use it. A reference list is a little bit different. It should be shorter than your bibliography because it's all the sources that you actually cited. So I got this information from this particular source rather than just like, I read this website even though I didn't use any of the information. Okay, so that's essentially those two. They're very similar if we've got a bibliography or a reference list. One of them is all the information. The reference list is just the ones that you actually have used. In-text referencing. This is a short version of your full reference, which we'll talk about in a second, but essentially the full reference is like the name of the person, the date, where it was published, the page numbers you used, all that big long information, depending on the type of source it is. The in-text reference is a shortened version of that. This tells the reader which full reference you actually did use. So down the bottom in your reference list, there'll be the full reference, but within the text, the in-text citation is just a shortened version of that. So I'll show you that in a second. The footnote, that's little numbers for the same, so those little, which I've got an example in a second, for the same reason as in text. So it tells the reader which full reference you used without having to list the whole thing. So in the middle of your research report, you don't have a massive reference or a massive URL or web address, something like that, right in the middle of the text. You just have a small little bit, and then if you want to have a look at what the actual URL is, you scroll down to the bottom and check it. Same with the footnoting, you can look at the little number and the bottom of the page, you can check it. So here are our examples. We've got in-text referencing is great because it's simple and straightforward. And this Rhoda, that's me, 2021. It includes a short mention of the person and year, depending on the reference style, but usually that's what it is, in addition to the reference list at the bottom of the whole document. So here we've got Rhoda 2021, where I've got information from me, and then down the bottom we've got references, Nicole Rhoda 2021, important point, Coro. Yeah? So that is this would be right down the bottom of the document, and this is in the midst. You can imagine having this whole section within your paragraph would disrupt the writing quite a bit. So that's why we do that. Similarly, footnotes are great because they have cute little numbers. Reference 1. They also have all the information you need on the same page as the information itself, which can be a handy tool, in addition to the reference list at the bottom of the whole document. So we've got Mrs. Rodder, and then we've got the full reference here, and then we've done a shortened version of that because it's actually the same as the one above. Okay, so that's just a bit of nuance, but essentially that's what footnoting looks like. What about quotes? If someone else's ideas or words are perfect and you want to use them exactly as they are, you can copy and paste as long as you use quote marks. So as long as you are using quotes, as you can see down here with the Dr. Seuss quote, be who you are and say what you feel because those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind. Great quote. So Dr. Seuss said that perfectly. I don't want to change a thing about what he just said, so I've put them in quotes. You can also embed quotes, so make it actually part of the sentence, but you would still need to use those quotes. The quotes are essentially saying, this is, like, you'll do the reference. So we've got Dr. Seuss and then no date, because I couldn't find a date for when he wrote / said that. And you will say this is where it came from, but the quotes mean this is exactly what they said. I've not stolen the idea, or I've not, copied the idea, but I've actually copied every single, like it's word for word. Okay, so that's what we do with quotes. All right, can my computer help me? Absolutely. So you might be familiar with the website Cite This For Me. Some schools have this blocked. I actually think that it's pretty useful, but a really good way to do it is to use Word, and then referencing guides can also be helpful, but they are essentially you put it through manually. So you've got the book and you're like, or you've got the website and you're like, well, here's the author, I put this here and put it in italics, and then I do a full stop or a comma or end bracket or whatever it is, whereas Word, you essentially put in all the information and then tell it what referencing style you want to use, and it does it for you. So I'm just going to show you really quickly where we find that. We've got references up here. So we click on that. If you are doing a footnote, you can go insert footnote. It puts a little 1 here because it's the first footnote we used, and then it comes down here and I might say Mrs. Rodder and do my full reference there. The handy thing here is if you go ahead and do a footnote before, it actually changes that to number 2. So it knows which footnote comes in which order, and so it formats that for you, which is really great. If you put the footnoting in manually by using these little mini writing up here, it does not do that for you. So make sure you use the footnote function if that's what you're choosing to do. The other way that you can do it is you can go insert citation, and you can see that I've already got one here. Oh no, I don't. Add new source. So then you'll go through and you'll put this information in, and I'll just do this really quickly, and then we go okay, and you can see it's got Rodder 2022. The cool part about this is if we want to, we can do bibliography, and so this will go put in your references. It puts them in alphabetical order, and so you can do that right at the end of the document. If we go manage sources, you can see I've got a couple in here. This is one that I did earlier when I was making this video, and this is the one that I did just then. And so we've got current list. If I wanted to put this over, I could do that, and then that would be when I generate the reference list again, it will include that one too, because it's part of my current list of references. So this is a really powerful tool, because once you've filled in these details, and this is for a book, you could do a journal article, you could do a report, website, there's heaps of different ones here. And it will prompt which details that it wants in there, and then you can actually just generate your reference list from there. So you will either be doing footnoting or you'll be doing one of these. I think this one's probably the easiest. And as you can see, we've got hello, Rodda, 2022, and then if I go down to the reference list, I can see where that came from. So that is fulfilling what we want to look for in, this is where this information came from, this is what the date is, what the person is, all those kind of things. So I hope that you found this helpful. Please, comment if you've got questions, or if I've incorrectly stated something. I think referencing is something that we're all kind of getting used to. University helped me a little bit to understand more about what it is, but hopefully this will help you in a school setting to do referencing above and beyond what is required.